didn't. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody? Happy Wednesday. All right, while we're waiting for everybody to get in, if you would go to your Canvas page. Today's Wednesday is supposed to be review day, so we're gonna just we're in the wrap-up stage of this module, and we're going to watch two videos to kind of refresh your memory on some things. Okay. All right. So again, if you would go to Canvas and look at, okay, got a lot of messages this morning. All right, so again, if everybody, while we're waiting for folks to come in, if you would read this over, this is the last lesson in this module, and then we're going to do a wrap up activity and do all those wrap up activities on that page. But today we're going to look at archaeology and observations. Okay, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. All right, we almost got everybody. All right, all right, just a reminder, we have a long weekend and make sure that all of your missing assignments are caught up. Progress reports go out next week or are available next week. They don't send them out, they are available. So you want to make sure that you have all your grades turned in. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute so I can open this assignment for someone. Again, everybody should be in Canvas reading over this page. We're going to look at archaeology today. Um, okay. Sandy. Yes, I think somebody also pointed out, let me go back to this one, legal issue. We noticed that that there's nothing in that collections. So don't worry about that. Somebody pointed out that in the CSI, let me go back and see if I can't show you what we're talking about. Under legal issues, it is missing something. Okay, previous. Edmund Jordan. We did notice that. Oh, that one. I guess it would have been easy if I was gone to the list, wouldn't it? All right, let me go. All right, give me a second, Jordan. I'll look into that as well. All right, under legal issues, yeah, it would have been easier for me to do this. Okay, so it was pointed out that under legal issues section, when we try to do, not that. Okay, you said under legal issues and evidence collecting. So it's not that one. On the items of evidence compared with known control. Are you doing the review? Brooklyn, tell me, be more specific where you are. Legal issues in the module wrap up. Okay. In the wrap up. Gotcha. All right. In the wrap up. Thank you. And let's look at that. That's not the one. It jumped on me. Stop jumping. Stop jumping. I could click on the right one. All right, here we go. It worked for me. All right, so for legal issues, Brooklyn, I don't know whether yours is working. So you have the multiple choice. You didn't have any choices here? And when you click on which one of these, for example, I'm just going to click this one. You should be able to click on it and yeah, that's where I am. Evidence collection assessment. So you should have, so yours doesn't have, correct? Yours doesn't have drop down answers like this? Because that's where I am. I'm looking at evidence collection. You said there's no answers. Refresh your page. It should have, these should have multiple choices to them. And then when you click on it, then you hit the check mark. It'll let you know whether, and right now I'm just clicking so that just to see. But it should look like that. Okay. Like I said, I'm just clicking just to, but you don't have, Brooklyn, does yours look like that? You have no answers underneath the question. Is that what you're saying? Items compared. I mean, one of the answers doesn't have. All right. Um, and then I guess you can't go forward if, I guess let me keep going, see if I see what you're talking about. Okay, this one is what you're saying. Evidence I compare. Aha. And when you click on it, okay. All right, I see. And then you can't go any further after that. Okay, I got you. All right, so folks, yeah, there's no answer there. And then just let that be your last question on that review. Okay? There, because it won't let you go forward unless you answer it, and there is no answer to submit. So just reset and let that be the end of it. Okay? All right, so I think we got everybody who's coming is here. So we will. So again, the module before that, before the review, is about you can't hear me. Why can't you hear me? I got mine turned up. Is there anybody else who can't hear me? All right, Candace, maybe you need to check your, everybody else is good. Check your sound system. All right. I'm going to stop sharing to make sure that I put the sound on the video part. Let me do that. And then I will show, okay. All right, I checked that. Share sound. All right, maybe that'll be better. Is that better for you, Candace? Yes, no? All righty. So we're going to do the lesson on, we're going to do two lessons. We're going to do anthropology, and then we're going to do observations. Always important.
Our focus is on forensic anthropology. So we are looking specifically at bones and skeletal remains and how these bones and skeletal remains can be used to help solve a crime or help identify missing persons. And so we're going to go through and we're going to talk about the role of a forensic anthropologist and then anthropology in general. So bones are remarkably durable and they undergo an extremely slow breakdown process that can last for decades, even centuries. So because of their resistance to decomposition, skeletal remains can provide a multitude of individual characteristics long after a person's death. Our skeletons support our bodies, they anchor our muscles, they provide internal protection for our internal organs. And skeletal remains, if they're found, can give investigators clues into how a person lived, who they were.
It's too early for commercial. All right.
And then ultimately how they might have died. So forensic anthropology is a division of science that seeks to identify human remains. And this has been used for years to help identify human remains. One example is with the September 11th fatalities. So we had thousands of victims that were part of the attack on the World Trade Center. And so we were left with unknown victims, the bones and skeletal remains of unknown victims. Their families
All right, it's buffering a lot this morning.
wanted closure, and so forensic anthropologists were called in along with other investigators and forensic specialists to help identify these human remains so that their family could be provided with that closure. This is also a process that's used when identifying victims of war or burn victims or skeletal remains that are found in the woods. Anthropologists are called in to help determine how a person died or who they were before they died or how they died. And when skeletal remains are found, the bones and surrounding area is treated like a crime scene. So the scene is going to be secured, it's going to be searched to locate all of the bones. If the bones are scattered, and then any other evidence that might arise at the crime scene, it will be packaged according to chain of custody, and everything works just like we talked about in Unit 1. So basically, the scene is documented and processed. Then a forensic anthropologist is going to be called in to use their knowledge of skeletal anatomy to help identify those remains. And they don't usually work alone. They're going to work with other forensic professionals or other forensic specialists, like pathologists or toxicologists or odontologists, to help sort of relay the clues or what one professional might discover might help another professional. So they're going to communicate and collaborate with one another, ultimately to figure out how a person died. When the skeletal remains are found, they're first going to be observed and examined to determine if they are in fact human remains. And if the remains are human, a biological profile is going to be created. Now, there's some controversy that exists here. We'll get into that in future lessons. But for the most part, if a biological profile is created, then there's going to be 4 components to that. So we're looking at the sex of the person, the age, the height, and the ethnic origin. Investigators can also, in some cases, extract DNA from human or skeletal remains or even dental remains, which is definitely helpful in an investigation. And some bones and teeth provide extra clues that investigators can use in their quest to identify human remains. So, what makes bones so remarkably durable? Well, it's because bones contain calcium and phosphate. They also contain some bone cells. You can see here in the picture sort of the anatomy of the bone structure. Bones provide the framework for our body, so they have to be durable. You can see there's red marrow inside the bones that produce our body's blood cells. Just some facts about bones that you need to know. Adults on average contain 206 bones, whereas a baby contains approximately 207 bones. 270 bones. And you might ask the question, well, why do babies have so many more bones than the average adult? Well, during childhood, bones thicken, they ossify, and they grow longer, and this results in fewer bones in adulthood. So throughout our lifetime, bones are always being produced and repaired and broken down, which also provide clues to forensic investigators and anthropologists when they discover these skeletal remains. Bones increase in length until the growth plate is ossified. That means when the bone actually replaces cartilage. So after the age of about 30, the process begins to reverse, and bones will actually lose minerals and break down faster than they are built. All right, to end today's introduction to anthropology, I want you to do a deep dive into 5 cases. So you can see on the screen here, there are 5 cases that deal with forensic anthropology. They're interesting cases, so I want you to take a second to research each of those cases and just jot down a summary of each case and be familiar with each case before you watch the next video. And in the next video, we are continuing.
All right, we're not doing that activity, but we are going to have a case study. We're going to do Casey Anthony, which we're not going to do that this week. We'll do that at a later date. We are going to take a real study, and that they use bone remains and do a deep dive into that one. All right, what I want you, this is going to be in your playlist, and on Friday we're going to actually do what is this? It's not supposed to be that. No, that's not what I wanted. But let me pause this for a minute. You're going to have an activity where it's going to be a PowerPoint where you have to actually, you'll be given a couple of people that they want to identify, and they're going to have a collection of skeletons. So you're going to have to put the skeleton together and measure the parts, or look at the different features about the skeleton. And so some of the things that she mentioned in the last video, you're going to have to remember: ethnicity, age. This one's going to talk about pelvic bones, the difference between the pelvic bones in a male and female. So all of these things you're going to have to remember in order for you to identify the collection of bones that you're going to get. So again, these will be listed in your playlist.
Students, we are continuing on with our lesson over forensic anthropology. This is lesson 3 in a 4-part series. So in lesson 1, we talked about forensic anthropology and the role of a forensic anthropologist. And then in the last lesson, lesson 2, we talked about the human skull and what sort of clues, as far as biological profile and other clues, anthropologists can gather to then turn over to investigators.
We have to watch
when the human skull is found at a crime scene. Today, our focus is on the pelvic bone, and specifically how it can be used to determine the sex of an individual. And then in the last lesson, lesson 4, we're going to talk about long bones in the body and how they can be used to determine the height of an individual. All right, now the discovery of skeletal remains is going to prompt immediate questions from investigators. And remember, this is treated as an active crime scene. It doesn't matter if these remains are fresh remains or ancient remains. Investigators are going to secure the crime scene. They're going to process the crime scene. They're going to ask questions. So some of the things that they're going to want to know, if this is a crime scene that they are working, they're going to want to know, are these remains human? And if so, was this person male or female? What was their biological ancestry? How old was the death? How tall was the person? How long has this person been dead? And then what was the most probable cause of death? Now, forensic anthropologists are highly specialized in this field. Pathologists, police officers, coroners, crime scene investigators, field investigators, they're not usually properly trained to recover and analyze skeletal remains. So they might call in the assistance of the forensic anthropologist, who's going to be best suited to recover and examine the remains and provide answers to these questions that investigators are going to have. Now, after the remains have been recovered in the field, they're usually transported to a medical examiner's office or some other laboratory facility for examination. And for each set of human remains, forensic anthropologists will attempt to provide general physical descriptions or biological profiles, which we talked about in the last lesson. And by biological profile, we mean sex, age at death, ancestry, height. And then there's some other clues that can be determined as well. So they're also going to try to determine whether the bones provide evidence of cause of death and time since death. So all of those are things that bones can be used to determine, but the pelvic bone specifically is used to determine the sex of an individual. And the human pelvis has the most reliable means for determining sex. The female pelvic.
Okay, I don't know why it switched scenes like that.
Bone is designed to offer optimal space for the birth canal, which is going to be reflected in its morphology or shape. as compared to the male pelvic bone. Now, anthropologists, although they're going to take measurements to determine gender, they often can just eyeball it. So they can do a gross observation or just a visual inspection to determine if remains, specifically pelvic remains, are male or female. Now, just like we did with the human skull lesson, I ask you to pause the video and just kind of research the anatomy of the human skull before we got into the lesson. And I want you to do the same thing today. So if you have this worksheet, if you're in my class, you have this worksheet, I want you to pause the video and just do a Google search to try to determine where these different parts are located in the female and male pelvic region. And then what are some specific differences between the female pelvic bone and the male pelvic bone. If you're not in my class, you can see the different terms that you need to be familiar with before you watch the rest of the video. So pause the video now.
Not pausing, you'll do this later.
Come back. All right, so you need to make sure this is recorded in your notes. Perhaps you found it in your research. If you did not, just make sure that you know these are some differences in the female pelvic bone as compared to the male pelvic bone. Now, there are other differences that are not listed here, but these are the ones that I specifically want you to know for this class. All right. So let's start with a subpubic angle. So for female, this is going to be 90 degrees or greater. And again, that just provides optimal space for the birth canal. In males, this is going to be an acute angle. It's going to be less than 90 degrees. Then we have the hips, or what we call the ilium. For females, it's going to be more relaxed, wider. The male ilium is going to be more upright and narrow, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute. As compared to the male's pelvic cavity is going to be smaller, and it's typically heart-shaped. And then the coccyx is going to be shorter for a female, longer for a male. It's going to curve outward in the female and curve inward in the male. All right, so using this information, I want you to see if you can determine which of these pelvic bones, these are replicas, which of these replicas are male and which are female.
All right, I'm going to pause this here. We'll look at this some more later because we're running a little bit out of time. We only got a couple of more minutes left to class, and I need to do attendance. So what you need to do, again, is go back. So like I said, I'm going to have an activity for you to do where you have to identify skeletal remains. I also have an activity. So I want you to think about, read this over, and the warm-up activity that I have for you later on is going to be a discussion, and it may sound a little morbid, but I want you to think about the characteristics that you have. So if someone was to find your skeletal remains, how would they know it's you? So give that some thought. And that's an assignment that's a discussion question for the next class, but think about that. But in the meantime, read this one over. We'll come back to this as an activity. Finish up anything that you have not finished. Do the module wrap up. I did get, so we do have the, excuse me. We do have access to Gizmo again. So for the microscope, we will do the lab, virtual lab for that, as well as the skeletal activity. So that's the next unit, microscopes. All right, and don't worry, and a lot of you still have access to that other assignment that said microscopes. Don't worry about that. That wasn't assigned to you. I thought I'd close that off, but people still asking me about it, and they shouldn't be, because it shouldn't be visible. So don't worry about that assignment if that's something you still see. It has not been assigned yet. That's the next module. I didn't even publish the module for you, so I'm really curious as to why it keeps popping up. All right, so in the time that's left, do we have time left? Yeah, we got time. We got 6 minutes, 7 minutes. So make sure that you turn in everything that needs to be turned in. Some of you still haven't done your review. Who was it who asked me about the test? Jordan. Okay, Jordan. Okay, I'm gonna check on that. Um, I need to give you, I need to open it and give you the code again. I will check my email. I will do that. Okay, first let me open this. You're welcome. Okay. Um, the 26th was yesterday. Okay. All right. Okay, Jordan, so it is now open until tomorrow. And uh, okay. All right, Jordan, I gave you the code. It's open until tomorrow, so please make sure that you try to get into that today or tomorrow. Okay. Uh, me do. Okay, give me 1 second, folks. I gotta do this attendance first, and then I can check messages. Okay, messages. Yeah, submit. Okay, I'll reopen. So, DeAndre, I will look at that and reopen that. And there was something else somebody wanted me to reopen. Mm, all right, DeAndre, that's done. It's open until tomorrow. Um, the review question has just been opened, so you can get to that. Angel, I see your message. So the forensic review question has been extended till tomorrow. So please try to get that done by tomorrow. You are welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. All right. Kylie, was that your question? Because I did not see your email, but was that the one you needed to? Okay. But this is also extra time. You got to keep in mind that this, folks, when I put a available date on, I always give an available time of a week from the assignment. So it might have a late date, but available time is always extra. So it was available originally up until yesterday, and that was due from last Thursday was when it was due. So reopening it till tomorrow is extra time. Kylie, that wasn't answering your question. My question to you was you had asked me to check my email earlier, and I did not see one. I'm looking at my inbox and I don't see a message. So hopefully I have addressed your issue. Okay. Okay. All right. So that everybody, please be aware that it's time to go, but just be aware that I always leave the assignment open. It has a due date and then it's available past the due date. So um, please keep that in mind. Please try not to wait to the last minute to do assignments. And most of these assignments, we have time to do it in class. So when I scringe on doing extra time, it's because we started in class and then you still have extra time to finish it. So keep that in mind, please. All right. See you next time. See you Friday. Have a good one. Oops, I already have somebody from next class waiting to get in. All right, folks, I'm going to log out so that the next folks won't be logging in to this class.